A crew in Mar Vista pulls down a 1923 bungalow on a Tuesday morning. No public hearing, no notice posted for neighbors to contest it. Just a permit number zip-tied to a chain-link fence. And by Thursday, the lot is bare dirt. 400 miles north, a fenced hole at the corner of Market and Van Ness has sat untouched for years, fully approved on paper and frozen in concrete reality. Two cities, the same state housing law breathing down their necks. Two opposite outcomes. Los Angeles is demolishing single-family homes faster than almost anywhere in California. San Francisco can barely get a permit stamped, let alone a shovel in the ground. This is not one reckless city and one careful one. Something underneath both of them is pulling in opposite directions, and neither city seems able to stop it. The paperwork explains everything once you know where to look. Los Angeles didn't choose to tear down more homes than any other city in America. Didn't choose. But something handed it the tools to do exactly that, almost overnight. In 2021, California passed Senate Bill 9, letting homeowners split single-family lots and add duplexes through a process with no public hearing and no discretionary review standing in the way. Researchers at the UCLA Lewis Center for Regional Policy Studies have tracked what happens when older, more affordable housing gets cleared for new construction across Los Angeles. And the demolition curve since 2021 doesn't look like ordinary decay. It looks like a system responding precisely the way it was engineered to respond. San Francisco, meanwhile, received nearly double the complaints of the next highest jurisdiction in the entire state to California's Housing Accountability Unit, the office created specifically to investigate violations of state housing law. The city is legally obligated to add over 10,000 new homes a year to hit a state-mandated target of 82,000 units by 2031. In 2023, it permitted less than one home a day. Two cities, one identical state mandate, wildly different math. Seattle, a city of comparable size to San Francisco, approves new housing construction at more than 3 times San Francisco's rate, according to U.S. Census figures cited in the state's own analysis. That comparison should embarrass a city that prides itself on progressive housing politics. Instead, it sat largely unaddressed for years, even as Los Angeles kept tearing through single-family blocks under a brand new state law most homeowners never read past the first paragraph. The easy explanation that Los Angeles is simply aggressive and San Francisco is simply careful already feels too small for what these numbers are actually showing. Both cities got the same order from Sacramento. They did not break the same way. The mechanism behind both cities is almost boring to look at, which is exactly why nobody outside city planning departments ever noticed it. Senate Bill 9 made Los Angeles lot splits ministerial. That single word does the damage. Ministerial means a city employee checks a fixed list of objective standards. No commissioner, no hearing, no neighbor with standing to object. If the paperwork is clean, the permit gets issued, the bungalow comes down, and construction starts within weeks. A follow-up law, Senate Bill 450, locked in a 60-day clock for cities to act, with automatic approval if they miss the deadline. San Francisco runs nearly the opposite machine. The California Department of Housing and Community Development's own housing policy and practice review, released in October 2023, found that San Francisco applies what it called a blanket discretionary review process to almost every building permit issued in the city. That means a planner, a commissioner, or a single vocal resident can pull nearly any project into a review process with no fixed end date, then appeal the outcome even after approval. People assume Los Angeles is simply pro-growth, and San Francisco is simply protective of its character, its views, its low-rise blocks. But San Francisco's own zoning maps show plenty of land already set aside for dense multifamily housing. The land is there, the stated political will is there. It is the process layered on top of both that decides what actually gets built and what gets demolished instead. A homeowner in Los Angeles can file SB 9 paperwork and have a determination letter within weeks because the city's own planning department processes it as an administrative fee schedule, not a discretionary hearing. A developer in San Francisco filing for a comparable multifamily project can wait years for the same outcome, fighting appeals filed after the project already cleared every objective standard on the books. The next question is who that process was actually built to protect. Moira O'Neill didn't grow up fighting San Francisco City Hall. She's an associate research scientist at UC Berkeley's Institute of Urban and Regional Development, and the state brought her in for one specific reason. San Francisco's own permit data couldn't explain San Francisco's own dysfunction. The Department of Housing and Community Development needed an outsider to dig through years of decision logs, appeal records, and discretionary rulings and tell them, in plain language, what was actually happening behind the city's stated housing goals. What O'Neill found wasn't simple incompetence. It was a pattern, repeated case after case. "It's really, really important to highlight," she told the New York Times once the review was finished, "how it's possible to use procedural rules to be exclusive and block the ability to house people. That single line does more work than an entire report full of footnotes. It means the slowness was never an accident of overworked bureaucracy. It was bureaucracy doing precisely what its own rules permitted it to do, year after year, project after project." On the other side of the state, the human cost shows up differently, but it is no less real. Senate Bill 9 explicitly bars demolition or lot splits on any unit that has housed a tenant within the past 3 years, and it locks out any property where a landlord used the Ellis Act to evict someone within the past 15 years. Lawmakers wrote those specific protections into the bill because Los Angeles's faster, hearing-free process kept hitting renters first, not owners. One city wrote its rules to slow down displacement. The other city wrote its rules to slow down nearly everything and called that protection. Her report wasn't really aimed at angry neighbors. It was aimed at the rulebook itself. Here is the moment the title question actually starts to answer itself. SB 9 did not make Los Angeles faster by accident. It deliberately stripped discretionary review out of single-family lot splits, because state lawmakers had already concluded that local discretion itself was the obstacle standing between California and the housing it desperately needed. San Francisco kept its discretion. It kept it everywhere. On permits, on design review, on environmental review that goes well beyond what state law actually requires. The Department of Housing and Community Development said it outright in its own report. San Francisco is an outlier on housing approvals, in part because of how it applies a blanket discretionary review process to all building permits. That sentence is the whole hidden engine behind the title. Los Angeles gave up its break. San Francisco never did, and the state's investigation didn't stop at description. It named exactly who benefits from the delay. The same report found that San Francisco's discretionary system lets what the authors bluntly called affluent NIMBYs weaponize the appeals process, pulling fully legal, code-compliant projects into years of limbo simply because someone with standing, money, and patience decides to object. The report described this pattern as creating major inequities across the city, concentrating density and affordable housing in poorer neighborhoods, while allowing wealthier ones to block construction almost indefinitely. In Los Angeles, the beneficiaries are different. By-right developers and individual homeowners can bypass the hearing entirely, can build or demolish without ever facing a room full of objecting neighbors, without ever needing a commissioner's signature. Same statewide housing crisis. 2 cities, 2 completely different groups, holding the leverage that decides what gets built and what gets torn down. Speed in one city and paralysis in the other are not opposite problems pulling apart by coincidence. They are the same fight over who controls land use in California, fought with opposite weapons, by people who almost never appear in the same room. Los Angeles handed that fight to the state. San Francisco kept fighting it block by block, appeal by appeal, year after year, and the cost of that fight is sitting in vacant lots and demolished bungalows on opposite ends of the same state. One city's bureaucracy got out of the way entirely. The other city's bureaucracy became the battlefield itself, with every individual permit turned into its own small war over who gets to decide what a neighborhood is allowed to become. None of this was a surprise to anyone paying close attention. Governor Gavin Newsom said it himself, almost flatly, when the state released its findings on San Francisco in October 2023. California's affordability crisis is one of our own making. The decisions we made limited the creation of housing we need. Nowhere is this fact more evident than in San Francisco. That is not a politician dodging blame. That is a sitting governor naming his own state's decisions as the cause. The state's review didn't stop at a quote. It flagged specific legal violations by name: breaches of the California Environmental Quality Act, the state's density bonus law, and the Housing Accountability Act, the exact statute written to stop cities from doing precisely what San Francisco's own numbers showed it was doing for years. And the state already had proof that loosening the leash worked, long before this report forced the issue. Before Senate Bill 35 took effect in 2017, San Francisco approved just 5 affordable housing projects across 3 full years, from 2014 to 2017. After Senate Bill 35 forced streamlined, by-right approval onto qualifying projects, the city approved 18 between 2018 and 2021. 14 of them directly because the new law stripped away the discretionary review that had been blocking them. The fix had already been tested. It had already worked, in writing, in the record. San Francisco kept its old process running everywhere else regardless, for years after the proof existed. Los Angeles faced its own resistance to losing control. Redondo Beach, a charter city, sued over Senate Bill 9 directly, arguing the state could not reach into its zoning authority. In 2024, Los Angeles Superior Court Judge Curtis Kinn agreed, ruling that Senate Bill 9 could not apply to charter cities and was not narrowly tailored to its stated affordability goal. The state answered with Senate Bill 450, written specifically to apply to all cities, charter cities included, declaring housing scarcity a matter of statewide concern that local charters could not override. The evidence was never missing. The fixes were never theoretical. What was missing in both cities was the political will to apply the proven fix everywhere the data said it was needed. The state already had proof the fix worked. It still took a formal investigation, a governor's public statement, and a courtroom fight to force it into law. So the state forced the issue, on paper, in both cities at once. Senate Bill 450 took effect January 1st, 2025, requiring local governments to approve or deny Senate Bill 9 projects within 60 days, with automatic approval if a city misses its own deadline. The same law also did something quieter, and just as significant. It stripped out the older restriction limiting demolition to 25% of a structure's exterior walls, handing Los Angeles homeowners even more room to tear down and rebuild without that earlier limit standing in the way. For Los Angeles, the brake had already been mostly removed back in 2021. SB 450 simply took off what was left of it, and the demolition pace kept climbing exactly the way the earlier law predicted it would. For San Francisco, the same law was supposed to finally remove the city's ability to stall, but removing a brake on paper does not move stalled cars. Construction at 30 Van Ness on the corner of Market Street sat as little more than a fenced hole in the ground for years, even after city approval, until the developer Lend-Lease struck a deal with the Board of Supervisors to drop its required on-site affordable housing entirely, converting all 333 planned units to market-rate condos just to get the financing to restart. The contradiction lands hard right here. Deregulation fixed Los Angeles' speed problem almost instantly, because Los Angeles' actual obstacle really was the paperwork sitting in front of it. San Francisco's obstacle was never just paperwork. It was financing risk, political deal-making, and a culture of discretion so deeply built into the city's machinery that even stripping out the legal brake didn't make the wheels turn. Sacramento removed the brake. San Francisco still wasn't moving. The first fix solved exactly one layer of this crisis. It quietly exposed a second layer sitting right underneath it. A city that can rewrite its own laws on command from the state and still find new financial and political ways to slow itself down, project by project, deal by deal. Go back to the bungalow in Mar Vista, reduced to bare dirt in 2 days. Go back to the fenced hole at the corner of Market and Van Ness, untouched for years despite full city approval. Neither image is random. Neither one is really about culture, character, or local pride, no matter how often that's the story each city tells about itself. The rubble in Los Angeles is the physical residue of a state law that succeeded exactly as it was designed to, stripping away local discretion until speed became almost mechanical, automatic, impossible to slow down once the paperwork was filed. The empty lot in San Francisco is the residue of a city that kept its discretion fully intact, long after the state had already proven, with its own commissioned research, that discretion itself was the obstacle. Both cities took the same order out of Sacramento. One gave up its veto entirely. The other has spent years finding new ways to keep it, reform after reform, lawsuit after lawsuit, deal after quiet deal at the Board of Supervisors. That is the real answer the wrecking crew and the fenced hole were both quietly pointing toward from the very beginning. The same state law that can level a house in 6 weeks still can't make San Francisco finish one in 6 years. Not because the city lacks the land, the zoning, or the legal mandate. Because it never actually let go of the one thing that was always slowing it down: its own hand on the brake.